Modern tank games have become pretty frustrating to play. Their free-to-play, games-as-a-service model encourages you to spend money regularly in order to have a good time. Fortunately, there's a tank game in development that aims to step away from that formula. What you're looking at is pre-alpha footage for Gunner Heat PC, or GHPC. Gunner Heat PC is being developed independently by a small team, and I have to say, for what's described as an insanely pre-alpha test build, what they've been able to accomplish within this build is very impressive. The armor and damage modeling is probably the best I've seen so far, with individual fragments being able to ricochet around the interior, as well as having their own ballistic arcs. There are a few scenarios you can try out with a solid selection of vehicles. There's even a firing range, where you can answer questions like, how many T-72s does it take to stop M829A3? The answer is 3 apparently. Now I'm more of a gameplay over visuals guy. I mean, some of my favorite games to date look like this, so I might be a bit biased, but if visuals are your thing, the Gunner Heat PC dev team have been working on what's known as a vertical slice. If you're unfamiliar with the term, think of it like this. Say you have a cake, and you cut a piece out of it. That piece will roughly show you all the ingredients and layers of the cake, and if you see the piece by itself, you could get a good idea of what the cake would look like as a whole. That's what a vertical slice is going for. It's meant to show off what the dev team wants the product to look and feel like once it's all said and done, but without all of the substance of the finished product. As of right now, in the vertical slice you can drive around and aim at things, but you can't shoot quite yet. According to the lead developer, Action Scripter, full weapons implementation is next on the to-do list. Upon first hearing about this project, I was pretty skeptical, but when I downloaded and played the pre-alpha build, that sense of skepticism was immediately replaced by respect and the belief that this could become something great. So to help get the word out about Gunner Heat PC, I thought it'd be cool if I could do a sort of text interview with Action Scripter. He agreed right away, and I really can't come up with a way of smoothly transitioning to it, so let's just jump in. First question, how long have you been working on Gunner Heat PC? Gunner Heat PC started as an experiment in late 2016, and began development in earnest in early 2017. At that time it was known as Josh's Unnamed Tank Game, and had a very small audience. Over time the name changed, and I was able to grow a community around the project. We now have an active Discord server and a growing Patreon support group. On the Gunner Heat PC website, you mentioned that frustration with current tank titles drove you to start development. Was it purely that, or are there other reasons as well? That was the tipping point, but I've always had a love for military hardware, including tanks, and I saw a need for a tank sim-like type of game similar to titles I've played before. Things like Armored Fist, M1 Tank Platoon, M1A2. You don't see that kind much these days. It was an easy call once I became disillusioned with the various free-to-play titles. To elaborate on this point, there are multiple core values behind Gunner Heat PC that were driven in part by experiences with other tank titles. Pay to win has no place in games, and content such as premium currency and premium vehicles destroys player experience. Selling out will be avoided at all costs, even though it would be more profitable to drip feed $60 vehicles, or implement a research tree with a paid grind shortcut. It's possible to have realism without making a game frustrating to play. It's possible to make a game fun without ruining immersion. Teamwork is a better gameplay pillar than frustration. My goal this entire time was to make the kind of tank game I wanted to play, and to provide an alternative to some of the bad experiences I've had. Will Gunner Heat PC be a hard simulation title sort of like Steel Beasts? Or are you aiming for something more approachable? Our design goal is to make the weapons, ballistics, and armor simulation level accurate, but keep the controls and interfaces game-like. In my opinion, the main shortcoming of modern military vehicle sims is that they expect players to sit down and train themselves on how to play each vehicle, with an actual manual. That may be an acceptable barrier of entry for the hardcore crowd, but it scares off plenty of others who would love to have that core experience but can't spare that kind of time. What are the rules that govern which vehicles will be allowed in a Gunner Heat PC? In the early prototype days, it was any free 3D model I could find online. Now that the game is getting serious and we're building it, our guidelines specify vehicles that were in service in the 1980s or later. Note that this includes vehicles that were first put in service before the 80s, but they have to have still been relevant at that time to be eligible. Priority is given to vehicles that were especially noteworthy or involved in actual wars. You'll see the M1A1 heavy armor added before the Leclerc. What sort of gameplay can we expect from Gunner Heat PC? Will there be a campaign, wave mode, PvP, scenario editor, etc.? Some of this isn't set in stone yet, but as far as we can tell, there will be several types of gameplay. A single-player focused campaign mode with dynamic territory and resource control, single-player and co-op oriented scenario missions, both historical and fictional, and multiplayer modes, not just arena team deathmatch or conquest stuff like you may be accustomed to, but more objective-focused or asymmetrical stuff. How large is the development team for Gunner Heat PC? And would you expand if you had more resources available? In the last year or so, the team has expanded from just me to about 5 people. Resources have been scarce so far, as they are for any small project just getting started, but I would be open to adding more team members with specific skills we need in the future. Do you plan on implementing multi-crew vehicles? This is a definite yes. In the redesign process we're currently working on, one of the guiding design principles is support for any arrangement of players. So for instance, you'll be able to invite friends to multi-crew your vehicle, or swap to a new vehicle when yours is destroyed, or drop in and out of ongoing scenarios, all without breaking the gameplay or the AI. Even the actual act of controlling a vehicle is done in the code by having you possess the minds of actual crew members. If you change vehicles or disconnect, they carry on with their tasks. Do you plan on adding any prototype vehicles? I won't rule it out, but at this phase it seems like prototypes are very low priority. We're focused on adding the most important vehicles first. Also, we won't be making premium vehicles. Preventing pay to win is a major imperative for GHPC, so that removes one of the primary ways tank games tend to excuse prototype vehicles being added. Will GHPC focus on larger tank users like Russia and the US, or will you also include some minor factions as well? We intend to eventually include some minor factions. This is too far in the future to nail down specific ones though. For the purposes of interesting scenarios or asymmetric gameplay, minor factions would often make a lot of sense. How do you plan to distribute GHPC once it's ready? For now, we're sticking to itch.io as a distribution platform, for both free public builds and Patreon only builds. The current phase is the creation of a vertical slice, a polished but scope limited preview of a potential full game. The GHPC vertical slice will release for free, and most development after that will be limited to supporters until full release of the paid game. After vertical slice, we'd be looking for backing for the full game, whether that be a Kickstarter, a publisher deal, angel investor, or something else. Is there any particular reason you chose Unity for the engine? I've been a professional Unity developer in the simulation field for years, with about a decade of Unity experience. It was the natural choice for me when I started making GHPC, and we've seen no reason to switch. Unity, like any engine, gives back what you put into it. It seems like community interaction is very important to you. I just love to see people having fun with GHPC. Interacting with the community also keeps me motivated, and gives me a direct look into sentiments about potential features or directions for the game design. And as a bonus, people don't have to speculate about our progress or intentions. We lay it all out on the table, and invite feedback constantly. If you wanted to implement a particular vehicle, but some necessary information was missing, how would you deal with that? This is a real issue when dealing with vehicles that have highly classified components. In general, we've been able to ascertain quite a lot of information from only public or declassified sources. For the gaps that are left, we use educated guesses. It's often the case that, despite not knowing specific performance data, we can still ballpark it or establish reasonable bounds. Final question. Do you have a time frame that you want GHPC to be completed by? Or is your approach, it's ready when it's ready? GHPC has no fixed timeline. The team is dedicated, but with the project being fairly young, we haven't been able to do things like bring on full-time members. As such, we keep our estimates very short-term and limited. For example, there will be a patch to the Patreon build in the next week or two with these new features. I've seen many projects that overpromised on timelines only to release undercooked in the end. That's not going to happen to GHPC if I can help it. So as you can see, GHPC has a very competent and passionate team behind it. I wouldn't be making this video if that weren't the case. If GHPC sounds like something you'd like to play, please consider supporting it on Patreon. I'll have links to their website, Patreon, Discord, and pre-alpha build in the comments as well as the description. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.